Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show.
It's that time of week again. It's time for Talk Back. Justin and I are in studio this week. We appreciate you hanging with us when Justin was in Florida last week. So we used the folks over at Ringer to connect remotely. And I know there's a difference in the sound quality when we do that, but Justin is sitting right across the table from me in studio this week, so our sound should be on point. But Justin, as I sit here, you probably notice a little bit more slouch to my posture, and that's because I am dead tired. I took it upon myself to decide that Memorial Day was the final weekend of me being fat and out of shape. So it's been a long time coming. I know that over the last 3 years, I've let sort of my stress and anxiety and exhaustion over having a kid with some special needs and health concerns sort of take over my life and in my personal life. So I go to work, I work hard, and I get that job done. But I find that when that's over, I really don't take care of myself. So, Justin, I joined a gym called Power Train.
That was serious.
Well, I thought so too. It was on the recommendation of a friend of mine, George, and then Kevin and Jeff. These guys all joined Power Train. They talk about how good it is. So I thought, well, I need to get on this bandwagon. I went in and I met with a trainer named Jordan, who, by the way, is a Capitals fan. So he was excited like you were last week when the Capitals got into the Stanley Cup Finals. So shout out to Jordan. But Jordan's the one that trained me today. And this morning, before I went into work, I went in and did legs. So early in the morning, I get up, I do legs, and then I try to go to work. Justin, I could barely haul myself around the hospital. It was crazy. And now I sit here before you Tuesday evening, and I'm slouching. I am dead tired. Tell me this is going to get better. I know you're big into fitness, and you yourself are in shape, and you eat right, and you do all the right things. Give me some encouragement, man.
I wish I could, but actually tomorrow morning, you might feel worse than you do now. You're going to be really sore when you're sitting in that car, one of your long drives to one of your hospitals, and you get out, you're kind of walking bow-legged. Just make sure no one, is around to see you because you might go viral because you're going to be walking pretty sore if you haven't done legs in a while. Legs always seem like it takes an extra day, and then it hits you. I remember when P90X doing that and doing the first leg day, and the next morning, officers were like, "Are you okay? Did you have a fall or an accident?" I'm like, "No, I just did legs." And it was like all week it lasted. So yeah, this might last a little bit, but then you'll be all right by next week.
Oh man, I'm not really happy to hear that because I'm not going tomorrow morning. I have actually 7 o'clock surgeries that I have to cover locally. I don't have to drive real far, so
you might
locally
want to do some stretching.
Yeah,
some
I've got 7 o'clock
show.
surgeries that I've got to be standing there for several hours. I actually plan on going about 4 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow to do upper body with a trainer. And so by Thursday, when the show drops and we're getting ready for game 1 of the NBA Finals, I'll be sitting on my couch. I probably won't be able to move at all. So it's going to be kind of a messy week here as I get started. But we have a good show on tap. Obviously, a lot to talk about in the NBA. Now that we know who the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finalists are, we'll have an opportunity to give our predictions about the finals. So in segment 1, NBA will run through the games. We'll find out how we got here. And then in segment 2, we'll run into what are our predictions, what do we think is going to happen, and then a little bit of talk-worthy news about NASCAR. And we'll answer a couple of listener questions about NASCAR as well, a couple of hot topics going on in that sport. So right after this, it's segment 1, all NBA. Thanks for listening.
Well, much like a good series of books or a movie series that comes out, a lot of times even like I'm thinking like the Jason Bourne series, Eric, where you know there's probably going to be more than one movie comes out. Sometimes you ultimately know that the main character, for example, Matt Damon, is probably going to survive. No matter how many bad guys are chasing him and how much weaponry they have, the interest becomes in how does he get out of this situation and where do we go next? And that's become what the NBA playoffs are like. For the fourth straight year, it'll be the Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors, something we talked about early on. Our first podcast year was last year. We did an NBA preview show. We both felt it would be Cavaliers-Warriors for the fourth straight year. But very interesting how we got to this point. Trades, injuries, multiple Game 7s now in these playoffs that we got to see. Both teams got tested coming out of their respective conference, both in Game 7s. But we know what's going to happen on Thursday night, what's going to go down. Let's talk about how we got there. Let's talk about Cavaliers-Celtics first. Called it on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I told you I liked Cavaliers in 7. I felt that when they got back to Boston, regardless of how good Boston's been at home, Boston doesn't have a LeBron James. They don't have a guy to rely on. LeBron went crazy in Game 6, had another monster game in Game 7, played all 48 minutes. So there has to be a narrative that gets driven. This one, conversation coming out is, did what LeBron accomplished so far this year with this Cavaliers team that's frankly not up to par in terms of a roster standpoint? You had Kevin Love out for the last 2 games of these Eastern Conference Finals with a concussion. I also want to ask you a question about that here in a moment, but is this accomplishment of getting to the finals, is it as big as the media is blowing out, meaning this is the greatest accomplishment of LeBron's career?
That's a great question, and I know it's a little bit loaded because of the text conversations you and I have had. Quite frankly, text conversations I've had with guys like Todd and Brad. You guys know who you are. Guys like Tony and Chad. You guys know who you are. You're all listening to the show.
God almighty, I hope you have unlimited text.
I do. Thankfully, I do. And all these guys coming at me with different angles about LeBron. And I find it hard, first of all, to just enjoy the moment as a LeBron James fan. Justin, I know that you sometimes get on the back end of me being a little bit pissy when it gets into talking about LeBron, and I just want a moment to celebrate without it starting to turn into either ESPN news or Jordan talk or how LeBron is a failure in certain other ways. My buddy Todd says, well, I respect what he does on the court, but I can't stand him for his X, Y, and Z. Or someone else will tell me, yeah, but he could have never beat Jordan's Bulls. Or, yeah, but, and then fill in the blank. And I find it just hard to just enjoy his greatness. That's one of the things that I've always talked to you about is, and not you specifically, but the you in general, with the population at large, with the way that ESPN drives this narrative, it becomes very hard for us as LeBron James fans to just celebrate and enjoy the greatness of this era without it always having to turn into a comparison study of Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and eras in the past, whether it be Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why can't we just enjoy what we've seen? Now, with being a LeBron James fan and knowing how he got to a lot of the finals that he was in and what he was dealing with, I'd have to say that one of the biggest arguments I've heard against LeBron's season is that the names on the jerseys this year didn't predicate him needing to drag a roster to the finals. In fact, my buddy Tony, one of my best friends, says, how can it be that this roster is supposed to be good and they're supposed to be favored to win, and then they struggle so much, and then we give LeBron all the credit? I get his point, but what it is on paper and what it actually ends up being in performance can be two different things. The New England Patriots lost to the Giants 2 times in the Super Bowl. Both times, I believe, they were favored. One of them, they were 16-0 in the regular season before they lost in the Super Bowl. So what you do in the regular season, the names on the back of the jerseys, or even Vegas's line and who's favored, doesn't mean anything if the shots don't drop. And I know you'll talk about that when we get into Houston and how terribly they played from beyond the arc.
They just missed another one too, by the way.
So it just goes to show you that what LeBron did to drag this team to the finals, I think is at least in his top 2 or 3, if not top. I'd really have to sit down and think about it. It's a great question that you ask me. I'd really have to sit down and think about it because I think the 2016 championship still tops it for me because that was still a very good Warriors team and it was bringing a title home to Cleveland. But this has to rank right up there because I know he had love. I know he had guys like J.R. Smith, like Tristan Thompson, who the Todd Peppers of the world and the Brad Palms of the world want to tell me it's LeBron's fault that those guys are there. That's fine. They still got a ball. They still got to play basketball. And if they don't perform and they don't give you support, then it's still LeBron doing all the work.
Wow, you went all over the place there. So we'll get into the next part of it, what you hit on. What I've heard from the media Monday and a lot of Tuesday was this accomplishment somehow is better than what he did in 2016 in the finals. And I don't feel like this trumps that because they were down 3-1 in a situation that no one gave them a chance. I've said it on here as and not getting paid. I mean, I wish someone would pay me six figures to do that. That would make life a lot more fun. I told you going in, LeBron, they were going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I said it when all the drama was out in the middle of the year. There's no one that can stop him. So to me, a biggest accomplishment is not something that people expect. People did not expect down 3-1 that they would find a way to beat the Golden State Warriors. So to me, this doesn't trump that. Now, if he can somehow find a way in these finals to win, that would be his greatest accomplishment ever. We'll get to that in segment 2 talking about it. But I think you made a great point, and that's really what, with our text thread after the game, and what I felt where the conversation sort of goes with the LeBron stuff, because I actually feel like it's the opposite. I think pro-LeBron people and ESPN and a lot of media, they don't want to just enjoy the game. They don't want to just look at the game and say, man, LeBron, 12 of 24, he played all 48 minutes, the block on Rozier. You know, he gets dunked on by Tatum, and then they go on a 15-2 run. It worked the opposite way. Most of the time, a big dunk gets your team momentum, and the Cavs got momentum from it. All those things kind of went out of control. You know, your text to me was talking about LeBron playing 82 games and all the NBA First Team awards. I turn on ESPN at the same time. You know, Brian Windhorst looks like he's getting ready to break out into a love sonnet for LeBron. I mean, I thought he was going to be in tears for the man. I mean, and then the next morning he's writing, this win's a validation for LeBron. This is as good as a championship. Like, man, no, it's not. That doesn't really work that way. And it becomes where I feel like LeBron fans at ESPN and all these other media, they're almost hypocritical in the fact that they don't just enjoy the game in the moment. Everything becomes a validation for LeBron. You talk about if LeBron has a great game, if he has a monster stat line, even the buzzer beaters. Oh, he beat the Pacers. That's his 4th. Look, Jordan's only got 3. No, he's got 1 versus the Raptors. That's 5. Jordan's only got 3. He's the GOAT. Everything becomes that. And I really like Kobe's tweet of, just stop it on both sides. There's no definitive way to do it. Jordan's in his 50s. He's not going to come out and play LeBron. There's no way that they're going to be able to figure this out. But everything devolves into that. And ESPN's the leader of it. Whoever runs the social media for ESPN should have a restraining order LeBron should put against them. Because they know way too much about everything that man does. Oh, he's got a triple-double. How many did Jordan have? Oh, he's got 40-point games. How many did Jordan have? Everything devolves into that, and it takes it away from fans that just want to sit and watch the games and want to sit and discuss what they saw. Everything becomes bigger. And the losses, it goes the other way, where the Jordan people then are like, oh, Jordan never done that. Jordan wouldn't have lost in 7. So it goes both ways. But as a fan, to me, that gets on my nerves because I would love to just talk about the game, the X's and O's. We do it on here a lot of what the defensive coverage was. Offensively, what the Cavaliers are trying to do with LeBron, his usage rate is enormous. It's in the 40s, it was in Game 7. But everything becomes more than that. And I think from a fan standpoint where I like LeBron and I certainly respect him because I can't do this podcast and be taken seriously if I don't call LeBron what it is and that he is the greatest player in the game right now and probably for his generation, certainly since 2000. I mean, he's better than Kobe. He's better than anybody that I've seen since Jordan. But the simple fact is, every argument becomes that. And I think it wears down both sides to the point where it becomes like politics, where people are just at each other's throats on everything.
You're right. What we see from ESPN and what we see from pretty much every conversation is that after the game was over, you know, you and I had been texting throughout the game, and I
didn't text you much through the game.
Well, but it was very cordial, and it was just about the game. And then at the end of the game, I definitely kind of went all out with, hey, here are some of my final thoughts. The guy played 82 games. He was first team All-NBA, 12th time. That's a leader in history. He played 48 minutes in the final game. I mean, this is really the best season LeBron has ever had. I didn't say one thing about Jordan. So I think sometimes, in my viewpoint, what happens is everything that ESPN and Fox and everyone, the talking heads, the talk shows,